Hello, everyone. I'm Cole from the Kingdom. I'm joined here with Lady Sulevin and Darth Shadie Lavellin. Today, we're going to be talking about a lot of the background, well, not background, but a lot of the implications of the lore that was revealed and presented to us in the Veilguard. So, you two can say hi.
Hi, I'm Darth Shady Lavalon.
Hello, I'm Lady Sulevin.
All right. So, one of the biggest things that people have talked about. Okay, there are two places we can start with this. So we can start with either the blight and all the implications about that, all the new lore that was revealed and different situations that they gave us, or we can start with the secret ending.
Uh,
Do you have an opinion? Okay, we're starting with the blight. Okay, the the blight. In the game, I liked some of what they did, and I did not like other stuff that they did. I liked all the blight growths and, it being almost like this fungus that's polluting everything. I like that. As for the Darkspawn themselves, I didn't care for what they did there. And I'm still confused about a lot of stuff, like how broodmothers are going to relate to this. A thing happened with one of our mages in at the very end of the game. But a big, big, big thing that people are talking about is the situation in the south, in Ferelden and Orlais, with the blight apparently consuming Denerim and most of Ferelden. I guess first of all, what did you two think about that?
Well,
uh,
Come on,
it,
I thought we were ready.
so so
it's a
the
lot.
yeah, it's okay. So the way that the blight is with the blight growths, it's I find it more in line with what we read in the book in the calling.
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciated that. I also appreciate the discovery that maybe this is what the blight originally looked like. And so it's not a new form of blight, but it's back to its first form. But it could have been more explored because,
Mm.
like I said earlier in our conversations, there are certain things that are kind of glossed over, and there are parts of the blight that are more expanded upon and parts that are glossed over that could have benefited to have more explanation.
Mm-hmm. One of those
Mm.
things. Sorry. One of those things for me was a mission for Antoine and Efka where we find something new has been calling the blight. And I don't know if that was supposed to be the gods or what, but they left that very open.
Yeah.
I assumed it was the gods.
I was uncertain if it was the gods because it wasn't made super clear. I found it well written in the sense that I love Antoine and Efka, but but then beyond that, it built it up, and then after it did feel like, can we have confirmation?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in saying that, like we know for certain now that the blight is connected to the Titans. It comes from them. So maybe it was the Titans waking up again, similar to what happened in the Descent DLC, because the connection with Harding, because of the connection with the Lyrium dagger, the veil being torn a bit more, um, the gods being released. Maybe it was a combination of all of those things.
But again, they didn't explain this. And I do think that is
Yeah.
a weak
Yeah.
point of the story. Um, but with that said, at the end, we have our mage. For me, it was Balara. It might have been Nev. Um,
It was Belara for me too.
yeah, what it seems like to me is they use blight magic to control some of the tendrils to help stop Lucican. But then after Elgrenon's defeat, they're cured of the blight. And I'm like, okay, does this apply to all wardens now?
It's
Is the blight gonna recede from all these growths?
it's what
Yeah.
Solus does. It's when Solus says that he can heal some of the blight, then.
Mm,
So it's not the defeat of Elgar'nan that does it. Like I interpreted that it's really Solus doing
okay.
that, healing the blight where he could, and I interpret that it's going to be all across Thedas.
So, what? How would that work with the Solus's bad endings then, where he doesn't go to the prison willingly? Like, does him being in this new prison heal the blight
Oh
in
yeah.
general, or is it his will doing it?
Hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It confuses me.
It confuses me.
Yeah, it
This,
wasn't expanded upon too
yeah,
much.
with the blight being as important as it is, not just in the world of Dragon Age, but in this game, they probably should have explained this. And
Yes.
the other thing they didn't explain is some commenters helped me out is what happened with the other elven gods. I'm like, okay, so their archdemons died, but what about, the rest of them?
I have
And
an answer.
people said without their archdemons, they died in their prison.
Yeah, the art book kind of heavily implies slash tells us that the other gods are dead. It's I haven't got my art book yet, so I can't find the answer, but I have seen it. I think Katie Gilderfallen, she has the entire art book on her channel. So I think I saw it there, but yeah, they basically say, yeah, they're dead.
Okay. Well, that's a shame, but at least it's an answer.
It's something else that was glossed over that could have been more expanded upon.
All right.
Uh,
Now,
you know.
let me address some concerns that people have had. They think that the blight and everything going on in Southern Thedas is BioWare's way of doing like a hard reset, so that none of our choices mattered. I think moving forward, our choices are going to matter again. I don't think they're going to make the same mistake in the next game, of giving us very limited choices to import.
I hope so.
Yeah. And I saw one video, or actually, I didn't watch the video. I saw the thumbnail. The thumbnail said, "Duncan died for nothing." And
Hold up.
it was citing the
I
whole
saw that
the whole mess going
thumbnail.
on with Southern Thedas and the Veilguard. And my response to that was to roll my eyes and say, Duncan died for nothing at the time. That's what made it a tragedy.
Yeah, that's war.
Yeah.
That is war. And that's the other thing. Just because we have this new problem that does kind of seem to overshadow all our previous ones, that doesn't mean our previous problems didn't matter. Like, those were still problems that had to be solved. Like, what if the fifth blight had raged out of control? What would that have meant for the Mage Rebellion and ultimately the ultimately Solus's plan? Like, all these major conflicts still mattered.
What I don't understand, though, is in Inquisition, Solus gets mad about the old gods being destroyed. And if the old gods being destroyed kills the elven gods in their prisons, why does...
I have an answer for that too.
So do I.
If they had died, then his prison would have failed and the entire blight would have gotten free.
Yeah, the elven gods' lives are tied to the veil, so it's...
So that's why he had to move them to a new prison, but keep the blight contained.
Right. That's the thing. Okay, so I forgot about that detail because so many details were just glossed over. And so I was like, it's okay, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, I have to rewatch some scenes, but definitely something else that was that I find could have been more expanded upon was like so they talk about the link with the old gods and the elven gods, and they explain that, but then they jump over, some of the like talking about like maybe the fifth blight or other blights or a history would and the history and the links because everything links back to the elves, so the interlacing histories, it could have been nice to develop that more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah. Once again, the art book elaborates on some things that I think should have been in the game,
Yeah.
which is kind
We
of annoying.
we shouldn't need the art book. Like John
Yeah.
Epler said that you don't need to have read anything or played any of the previous games to enjoy Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which
You kind of do.
to a certain extent is true, but also untrue. Because without having read all that, without having played the previous games, and yeah, like without the art book, like there's still questions.
Yeah.
Well, I guess while we're talking about the blight and stuff, what do you think the role of Darkspawn is going to be in the future? Because we still have, like, even assuming Solus like undid the damage from Veilguard, like, what about the Architect and his disciples?
Yeah, does the healing make them intelligent and freer from the blight?
Yeah, what about Brood Mothers? Because we know what happened with the Mother in Awakening. She went crazy when she was awakened. So I'm wondering what their role is going to be moving forward. I think they're still going to play a role, but it's going to be a lot more erratic.
If the blight is kind of weird, quote unquote, they're going to need a new threat. They're going to need something else to replace the blights, because otherwise it's just rinse repeat. But it would be interesting to see the blight, like the Darkspawn, become intelligent, to see them become a new race of beings, to see them take their place as people, as legitimate people and citizens and Thedas, and to start some sort of, like the blight becomes a healing thing. It used to infect everything, and maybe now it can heal. Like, it would be nice to see something from it.
I don't know how I feel about that, but
No,
I want them to do something with it. I don't want them to just wipe it off the board.
no, exactly. I'm looking at a healing aspect or whatever, but it could be something else. Like that's just one idea, but definitely don't wipe it off the board. I'm with you on that.
Sulevin?
Yeah, sorry, they're loud noises. Yeah, no, I don't know how they would go forward with the blight or anything. It's just, especially when there's no archdemons, there's no elven god. Well, I guess there's Solus, but like, please ignore the background noises. It's
I just
it's
realized something.
complicated.
I just had a crazy theory that just popped into my head. All right, Shadie, you talked about a new threat. Earlier, I didn't comment on this, but Anaris from Balara's questline, a forgotten one,
Yeah.
doing their own thing. I was curious, what about the other two, or if there are even more? And I realized with Tasha's line, they set up the Devouring Storm, the thing the Canary fled from. What if that's where Gelderon went?
Ooh.
In his Chamber of Secrets, he talked about, I will gain power of my own apart from them until I strike in mastery. What if he's the one behind this Devouring Storm, which is also connected to the secret ending, which is like the future of Thedas?
And maybe it can be connected to the blights too.
Yeah, more elves. That's what we need in Dragon Age. More elven stuff. But also, I kind of like the theory.
Hmm. No,
It's
I
true.
I know that Darren Ball's
Hmm.
in not in the game, but I remember there's a codex that mentions Darren Ball
Yeah.
at least.
There are a few interesting codex entries. There are a few for those across the sea, and I guess now we're going to talk about the secret ending. So those across the sea, first introduced in Inquisition, with their symbol is a downward pointed triangle with two wavy lines, which is what we see if we collect the three strange circles.
Floating, yeah, the floating discs or something. Hmm.
And it's talked about how they don't feel evil, but they feel wrong. And right, this is probably what the Canary fled from. This is probably the devouring storm, I guess.
I
Uh,
also get the sense that they were like experimenting, watching from afar, waiting for things to take shape. So maybe the Kunari were their experiment, and maybe there was something with the Evanurus that had to do with them, their experiments. They planted
Yeah.
seeds. I get the impression that they planted seeds somewhere, like they're the masterminds planting seeds everywhere, and now they're like sitting like Mr. Burns with like the fingers and like excellent. And now it's time to reveal ourselves again. Like I don't know.
yeah. There are a few codex entries that mention them. There's one in Tevinter. The ancient magisters knew about those across the sea. And also, Andruel was defending against an invasion from across the sea. So we know they've been around for a while. There's a lot to unpack there, but I want to address that some people really, really hate the secret ending because I guess their interpretation is that, like, Loghain and Meredith and Bartrand were all manipulated into doing these things, and that's not what I got at all.
That's not what I got either. I got that the seeds that were planted were long, long, long ago, but they just maybe left things there for people to use and see what would happen, or they experimented and created the Kunari to see what would happen. And now that they watched everything unfold, they're ready to come back and make their mark or something.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead.
Logan's choices were Logan's
Yeah.
choices.
Yeah.
Um,
Like the impression I like my first take on it was the bad take because I just yeah. But like thinking about it, like Bartrand finding the idol, maybe why was the idol there specifically? Did they plant it there maybe, or like the architect happens upon the archdemon? Like it feels like
Mm.
they made the choice to go forward with their actions, but things were put into place so that that choice could be made, if that makes
That's
sense.
right.
That's something else that was glossed over because Solus also kind of like puts things in place and waits for things to happen or plants certain seeds in his manipulations. And the idol, so his dagger was the red lyrium idol, but we don't discover much.
Yeah, we don't know what
How
happened. That
did
was
he get
weird.
it? How did he get it? It felt like something that they just threw in to the story because that's what people were theorizing or wanted, but they with no explanation and it makes no sense.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they definitely should have handled that differently. The only thing I can think of as far as that goes is we know Meryl purified a piece of the Eluvian from the Blight using blood magic, and since we know Solus
Mhm.
was kind of forced to indulge in that, maybe that's how he did it. I don't know.
Yeah. Plus, like, I know Imshale knew how to remove the blight from someone, because he offers it to one of the Red Templars. So it's not like the blight isn't in some way curable, but it's
It's weird.
they definitely need to expand upon that.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, as far as people thinking the executors, which is the agents of those across the sea, thinking they like were manipulating events specifically in this way. They wanted things to play out this way. I did not get that. I think the slideshow, these were all major turning points in Thetis that they were just kind of keeping an eye on
Yeah, that's
until
what I
Thetis,
got too.
yeah, until Thetis was ready
Hmm.
for their invasion or whatever.
Like they were specifically waiting for the Evanurus to disappear, for the wolf to be defanged, all these events, like something.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's
The
like
world feels like it's weakest, I think.
the Reapers don't attack civilizations that aren't evolved or space worthy. They only attack the civilizations that are advanced.
yeah,
So it's like the Reapers waiting for the civilization to get to a certain
yeah,
point and now to come in to attack.
yeah. Like they open up with the defeat of the elven gods. Like, okay, now that that's been done, but they obviously weren't manipulating the elven gods.
No.
So like they were Loghain and Meredith, they were just kind of doing their own thing. And the executors were keeping track, but this wasn't their plan.
Are the executors the forgotten ones?
Well, that was kind of
I
what I was saying with
Yeah.
Gelderon.
I got that impression, like the scene where Inaris is introduced. I can't remember how he worded it, but the way he worded it, when you're like, "Oh, you're a forgotten one," he's like, "Yes, I'm one of them." "Oh, are any more of you gonna turn up?" He's like, "Not here," or he says something like that, and I'm like, "Ping."
I
What
wish
does that mean?
I wish we could have had another asked him more questions.
Yes.
Like been like, "Hey,
And
Anaris, maybe I might like to join you if you were to explain yourself a little bit."
yeah, just to try to learn more. And Valaro, it would be funny if she catches on like, oh, right, yes, tell us. Maybe we'll change our mind. And yes, that was missing because the way they presented Anaris, it's not too similar, but not too dissimilar to the description of the executor in To Winter Night.
Oh, yeah, dang, I didn't
Yeah.
even catch that.
I thought it was
So
an executor at first, honestly.
So there are similarities, but there are also differences. And it's like, but again, kind of glossed over. It's so we have more questions than answers. And I guess that's where the story of the game fails, because that's where a lot of criticism comes in, because it's there's a lot that's well delivered, but there's a lot that's lacking, and that's one of these details.
Well,
Yep.
I want to talk a bit about, I guess, where Thetis is heading. So, you know, I didn't realize it until after I beat the game, but I was like, the Canary didn't actually do anything in the game. Like the Antam, sure, but they were Talvishath now. The
Yeah,
Canary
and
itself, the Cune, had
we didn't
no role
go.
in the game.
No, exactly. We didn't go to Parval, and we didn't go to Saharon, and I thought we'd go to Starkhaven.
Yeah.
That was disappointing.
I mean, I wanted to go to Navarra City. I wanted to see Antiva City. I wanted to see more of Ravane. And I do think we'll get more of that in the next game, whenever that is. Hopefully, it's not another 10 years. Knock on wood. But I guess politics was lacking in the game. Freaking, I guess Dorian became Archon by default. Did you catch that?
Yes,
He was referred to as Archon
And
Pavus.
in my game, that didn't happen.
Really?
Yeah, because what did I choose? I don't remember. I think it's the Minrafis Treviso choice again. I think neither Miveris or Dorian became Archon
Huh. Maybe
because it never mentions it.
maybe it was in better shape because basically the whole Magisterium was blighted.
yeah.
Mm,
Um, But yeah, anyway, yeah. I thought I would have appreciated Dorian becoming Archon on his own merits and not by all the other Magisters dying
Or on screen.
on screen. Yeah, no, like
Yeah.
there's a lot of things we can complain about. But as for the story they told, I mean, I'm happy with it.
Yes, that's the thing. For the story, for Rook's story is well delivered.
Yeah.
And I was worried that I wouldn't get attached to Rook because I was so attached to some of my Inquisitors. Three in specific: Maxwell Trevelyan, Milana Lavalon, and Asan Lavalon. So I was super attached to those three Inquisitors, but I love Thanaras. And I'm like, can I just re-roll this character over and over again? Like I love him, and I grew super attached to him very early on in the game, and just exploring his story. And so for Rook's story, it's well made. For the character arcs, they're well written. But comparing it, for example, to Inquisition, which is my favorite Dragon Age game, Inquisition is like a huge main story that drives everything forward. Whereas this one, it's like good sub stories that drive the main story forward. You know, it's like parts of the main story are not as well meshed as in past Dragon Age games, I find.
Okay.
That's where it falls short. That's why I give it an 8 on 10, while Inquisition for me is an 11 on 10.
Yeah, no,
I just love Inquisition.
yeah, no, I think it's a solid 8. Solid 8. Origins and Inquisition would probably be 9s and 10s. But I don't know where they fall exactly. 2 mixed feelings, maybe 8. I don't know. Anyway, I want to. That kind of brings up something else I wanted to talk about, which is. Okay, so they had to write around this because they didn't include the choices for some reason. Well, no, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it like that. We know the reason. I just hope they'll correct it in the future. But our other
For
heroes.
some reason.
Our other heroes. The Warden, Hawk. Again, either of them might be dead, and so they couldn't account for those choices. But it's a pretty easy headcanon. For me, it was a pretty easy headcanon to just say, okay, they're dealing with all this chaos that's happening in the South.
Yes,
Just like
and
the Inquisitor.
now that Solus can heal the blight, well, our Warden can be healed from the blight too. Grey Wardens, maybe that's the cure for the blight. Maybe Grey Wardens don't die anymore.
Yeah. I just want more information.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. Yeah, like I said, a lot of our old heroes, old companions, they're probably just dealing with stuff down south.
I think the only issue I have with it is it relies heavily and to be able to fill in those gaps. I'm having to do a lot of headcanoning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that worries me because of how much that that might get rewritten later down the line. Like,
Well,
You raise a really good point, because a lot of the gripes that some people were expressing, like for example, just with the Lucanus romance, is it's not what they wanted. It's not because it's not what they were headcanoning, because it's not what they were imagining for different parts of the story. And my reaction was like, okay, I'm letting go of all of this because I'm going to watch the story that's being presented to me. But I'm seeing all these gaps where I have to fill things in. And it's like, they're shooting themselves in the foot by doing that, because then we're all going to have different ideas of what we think the next story is going to be. Like we had 10 years to all come up with different ideas of what this story was going to be. And so, yes, it's very different from what a lot of us thought, whether we like that difference or not. And the next one with even less filled in, it's going to be even more difficult
Yeah. I
to
honestly,
deliver.
I don't know that they can get around uh, limiting our choices again. Or, I mean,
Hmm.
I don't think they can get away with doing that again. Like, there's too many
Yeah,
choices they would have to write around. It would be easier to just, use the keep system or an alternative. It would
yeah.
honestly be easier to account for these different choices than it would be to try to write around them.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
still think it was a mistake to have it those free choices, and that's it. I think
Yeah,
that
I'm not
was
sure
a
anybody thinks
mistake.
that was a good idea.
Yeah.
No, it's like, okay, it is what it is. But, there are like at least six other choices that could have, you know, legitimately impacted Northern Thetas would have been
Mhm.
important to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But we don't want to spend too long talking about that. Are there any other major lore implications or reveals that we want to hit? Oh, we didn't really talk about the dwarves at all. Um, I kind of felt like Kel Rock was a kind of a tease.
We couldn't go back. I
We
missed,
couldn't go
I
back.
thought
I
I
thought
thought
we'd
we were
be
gonna
able
go
to
back,
go
so
back.
I
I
didn't look
skipped so
everything.
many things. Yeah,
We couldn't go back. We didn't get to see Cal Rock proper. They explained, okay, Cal Rock had to become like the Darkspawn in order to survive them. What does that mean? I don't know. Never explained that.
They're just vague.
I want more
The
dwarven
dark.
stuff.
I
I
I like what they did show, but they did not show
I
enough,
agree.
is where I feel.
exactly. I so in past Dragon Age games, I, I automatically obviously connected with elves, but I had difficulty for whatever reason connecting with dwarves and dwarven lore. And with the Descent, that's when I felt I really connected with dwarves and dwarven lore and searched to read more about it and learn more about it. And I feel that there was a missed opportunity in Dragon Age the Veilguard to really dive more into dwarven lore
Hmm.
Yeah. Maybe
because,
Yeah.
maybe we could
yeah,
have recruited a Titan to help us fight the gods.
Oh God, don't look at the art book.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
One of
it
the
like
original
the
concepts was bringing a Titan into the fight.
there was like a mini baby Titan somewhere like in the behind the scenes that were like being developed. Like, where did that happen? With the spider with the hands. Where's the spider with the hands? I don't like spiders, but where's the spider with the hands? Like there were all these things that they were teasing us. And Cole, you asked what they what else they kind of glossed over. Mythal. Uh, Andraste being a host for Mythal. When we're talking with Morrigan, before she unlocks the door for us to go converse with one half of Mythal, she mentions briefly that, uh, like she saw her mother, whatever, and one aspect of Mythal this, one aspect of Mythal fell in love with an Alamari chieftain.
Hmm.
And
Well,
that's
that also applies to Flemeth.
that's what I thought. But Flemeth she was married to an Alamari chieftain, but she was in love with another man. So it's like it's unclear.
Hmm.
So it's confusing because it glosses
Yeah.
over
That
a
one's not.
part of lore that could have.
Yeah, could have and should have been explored. We talked about that earlier with just the Chantry in general. Um, but as far as Andraste personally goes, I'm fine with leaving that vague.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But it's another good talking point. Um, all right. Is
How
there any?
did how did you feel about Kate Mulgrew not returning for Mythal?
Sad but
Uh,
understandable.
yeah. I love Kate. I love Kate Mulgrew. and she did a fantastic job in the previous games, but uh, it doesn't feel like such a huge loss.
It's explained that it's Mythal and not Flemeth,
Yeah,
but emotionally, that connection with that aspect of like the Flemeth aspect of Mythal, that wasn't lacking in this game.
Hmm.
So I felt if it would have been with Kate Mulgrew, there would have been a more of an emotional connection for me
that's
there.
fair.
Hmm. Oh, I've got one. How do you guys feel about the confirmation that the elves were once spirits?
Uh, Pretty cool,
Hmm.
but it doesn't really go beyond that.
They were the first of the makers, the spirits, but then I want to know if the maker became Nightmare.
Hmm. Hmm.
Wait, the maker became what?
Nightmare.
As in, as in the nightmare we fight in Inquisition?
Yeah, I have this whole theory that the maker became Nightmare. But like it's who and what is the
Hmm.
maker,
My
like the actual maker.
my theory remains the maker is the Fade.
Oh.
And I guess we can talk about that real fast. So, what is prayer and what is faith if not willing something into existence? Okay, that's not quite accurate, but I'm sorry, I'm doing this on the fly. This is what happens when I don't write a script. Um, in the Fade, will is made manifest. And so when we. The theory is that the Fade has a will of its own, and that will is the maker. And as the Chantry preaches, the maker's kind of indifferent at this point, and that lines up with the Fade. And as people pray to the maker and have this faith in him, things are made manifest, both in the Fade and sometimes the Fade can impact the physical world. Oh gosh, I should
So
have prepared for that.
Andraste saw a spirit of compassion,
Or
a
faith,
spirit of faith.
or faith.
Yeah,
Yeah.
perhaps. Yeah, a spirit of faith, and Solus created Thedas with the veils, so he was like the maker of Thedas, but not the maker
Hmm.
of the chant of light. And so then Andraste is the maker because the spirit of faith, the that approached her when in her desperation.
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, the Fade has its own consciousness, is what is my theory, and that consciousness is the maker.
Hmm.
Um, and Andraste joining with the spirit of faith, that's my theory as to why her ashes heal people. Um, but yeah,
Hmm. I'm
That's a
thinking
really
of
interesting concept.
hmm. I'm thinking of Issa Tunal, which
mm,
is what when Harding explains that the eternal hymn, us, we, them, everything, all time, all places, and my first thought was, well, that's just God. That's the maker. That's what it sounds. So maybe not. I'm not saying the Titans are the maker, but like going that far back, it feels like when everything was connected, everything was the Fade was everywhere, the Titans were everywhere, everything was just was and is and will be, and it gets
that's
weird.
yeah, and that's sort of the Ravani native religion, which is just like animism, or like the living universe.
Hmm.
And in that case, who's going to rise? Who's the when he rises from Sandal's prophecy? Because one day, he says, one day the magic will come back, all of it. So we thought the veil was going to come down. Everyone will be just like they were. But we are seeing people becoming like they were. Like the dwarves are becoming like they were originally. And then, and at the end of the prophecy, he says, when he rises, everyone will see. And we thought it was the Dread Wolf or Elgar'nan. So who's he?
The mysterious voice at the end of the post-credit scene. Well, in the post-credit scene, maybe?
Maybe.
When he rises?
Oh,
Not to
gosh.
mention, like, Inaris didn't die. He went back to some far corner of the Fade.
Yeah, just like
So,
the formless one and the other forbidden ones.
Exactly,
yeah.
because we find a codex from Imshal. So Imshal exists in the Fades, so the Forbidden Ones are still in existence somewhere. Which means that whoever we left in the Fade is still in existence somewhere.
Woo!
Hawk, Alistair,
Mustache
Logain,
Man!
Stroud. Stroud the mustache
No,
man.
but,
And
like, the Evanuris banished either the Forgotten Ones or the Forbidden Ones. What if they banished them across the sea, like literally, and that's where they've been?
that's a thought.
And
I don't know.
and so then were the Forgotten Ones part of the first children of the Maker, the first children of the Fade, because they were elves too?
Well,
Maybe?
Gelderon, I guess, identifies more with the elves that came later, the ones that
But
weren't spirits.
I thought Solus tricked them and locked them up too.
Well, that's never confirmed by Solus.
Yeah, he never
Ooh,
mentions them, I don't think.
He mentions other
So maybe
gods
that's
that
Baelish
history.
legend?
He mentions other gods that history forgot.
Oh, yeah. Doesn't he say that there were other Evanuris that he defeated? It's just, like, the
Yeah,
ones that were locked away, they were the ones he couldn't?
right.
Ah, I don't know.
I
I
don't
need to
know.
go rewatch so
it gets
much.
confused. It really gets confusing.
Yeah, and it's getting late, so I think that's where
Yeah.
we'll call it. Thank you all for joining us throughout all these talks. If this is the first one or second you're watching, these other two lovely ladies have discussions over on their channel, so go check them out. For now, we'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.